How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and we're going to be discussing complacency, the silent enemy that kills from within. And it's a needed subject, guys, because complacency can definitely threaten the safety of an entire facility. So stand by, got some sponsors we got to run through, and as always, guys, this channel's for you, the frontline professionals who work in the field of corrections. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe, interact, engage, and hit that bell. This way you get the notifications each time we release a video. So stand by for our sponsors.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
All right, thanks for coming back. The show is Tier Talk. I'm Anthony Gangi, your host. And guys, don't forget, the show is for those professionals that work the front line in corrections, the ones that work behind that wall in the shadows of justice. So guys, please subscribe, interact, engage, get involved, and hit that bell. Make sure you hit that bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified each time we put a video up. So we're talking about complacency. We're also going to kind of hit on policy and procedure, because when individuals become complacent, in some cases they may not realize that they've broken away from policy and procedure. Because again, complacency is a very subtle and covert enemy. It kills us from within. So we may not realize that we're being affected by complacency. That's why, again, it's good for us to police each other. When we have new boots coming in that are being trained by experienced officers, the first thing those experienced officers need to do is to get those new boots familiar with policy and procedure. So if they come to your unit and they're being trained, hey, before you understand how I do the things that I do, I need to give you a good base foundation. So please take a second, read the policy and procedure for this unit. Get to know what the policy and procedures are, because if you ever unfortunately, if you ever have to deviate, because sometimes it happens, policy procedures are not written in stone. That's part of the evolution of where we're at, and we are dealing with human behavior. At least you can deviate from a good foundation and then be able to explain why you had to deviate. That's the key, guys. But when you're being complacent, well, where are you going to reference something when you get in trouble? So let's say, I'll give you an example of being complacent. Let's say you're letting out a mess movement, and you need to only let out 20 inmates at a time. That's the controlled number. But then slowly, you start letting out a little more than 20. And then one day, you're letting out 30. Now, when you go back and someone says, hey, what's the policy? How many inmates are you supposed to let out at a time for mess? Oh, it's 30. It's 30. Yeah. Well, who taught you that? Well, the officer on the wing taught me it's 30. And then when you go back to the officer on the wing, the officer may say, yeah, it's 30. Really? Can you show me what policy says? All right, let me take a look. Oh, wow. Policy says it's only 20. So how do we get to 30? Because we moved inches, but we didn't realize it. So how do we get to 30? So in this case here, these officers have broken so far away from policy that they're not aware of it. But the other concern is, what do they also do? They trained another officer, thinking that what they were training on them on was policy. And it wasn't. They had broken away from policy. And unfortunately here now, if something happens, if those 30 inmates decide to get into a rumble, where are you going to explain, or how are you going to find a way to explain yourself when you have those 30 inmates out? Well, the first thing we would like to do is go back to policy, but policy didn't say 30. Policy only says 20. And now you got the new boots thinking it's 30 because they're looking at the practice. And again, complacency breeding complacency. Sometimes people, they don't look at policy, they look at the practice. But you got to have them look at the policy first, because that can make them question the practice. And that's key, because if we get so far away from policy and procedure, if that officer gets caught up or if that staff member gets caught up, they're not going to be able to defend themselves, because management and anybody even above management is going to go right to policy and procedure. What does policy and procedure say? It's an automatic default. You know, even on safety and security wise, outside of what we just talked about, I've seen officers get laxed in other areas too. You know, you got a movement, a bunch of inmates coming out, and there's officers with their hands in their pocket. It only takes one officer to put their hand in their pocket before the other officers start doing it. And that's a time when we're most vulnerable. All the inmates are out, and we're limited to how many people we have to respond. So one officer puts their hand in their pocket, now the next one does, and the next one does. I as a good supervisor, you take those hands out. You know, maybe not physically pull the hands out, but you tell the officer or the staff member, hey, do me a favor. Do you know who you're around? How comfortable are you right now to put your hand in your pocket? Get your hand out. And let people see that. You know, let people see that. Your hand should not be in your pocket at any time, especially when those inmates are roaming about, and especially during a mass movement. You know, so again, you can't be specific and cover every moment when we're complacent, but what I could tell everybody right now is real good advice is go back and read policy and see if there are any practices that you've committed to that go against policy. When was the last time you read policy and procedure? Have you read policy and procedure? Because right now, the concern is going to be is that you have complacency breeding complacency, which means you're going to have people so far away from policy that when something goes off, how you defend your position. You cannot defend your position. So knowing policy and breaking away from complacency will not only protect the facility, but will also protect your career when you have to defend your position. And there's a lot of times, and I can't go over every specific of being complacent, but you guys know it. You guys know it. Undue familiarity could be complacency. How comfortable are you with those inmates? You know, there's a lot of angles that we can hit when it comes to complacency. But what I wanted to do was just to keep a general discussion about the dangers of complacency, basically knowing policy. Because guys, if you know policy, there's never a true scramble, because you know where you have to be. So even when you're dealing with issues that are new or novel, well, guess what? You may scramble a bit, but you have a direction of where you need to get that to be, where you need to, where the end result needs to be. But if you don't know policy, then you don't know where you have to be, and now you're really scrambling. You're scrambling with no direction. So again, just, you know, read those policies when you get back to your facility. Read them, understand them, and see if your practices align with policy and procedure. And if it doesn't, it's time to go back to the drawing board. And hopefully, if you were a training officer, you didn't train complacency. So for the people that you affected, you should go back and tell them, hey guys, I need you to read policy, because I just realized this was more of a practice and it wasn't from policy and procedure. All right, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Love you guys. My name is Anthony Gangi. I'm the host. And please interact, engage, subscribe, and hit that bell. Be safe.